All right, guys, so as promised, I have made it here, and I got Johnny from Fish the Moment. Say hi, Johnny.
How y'all doing today?
So we're going to put him to answering some of the questions that you guys asked last night in the live video, right after this. Fish on! First question comes from Tim Cooper. Tim says, Johnny likes to run around from spot to spot when offshore fishing, sometimes several miles apart. I would like to know how he would keep own fish in a kayak, since that isn't possible.
Hey Tim, how's it going? So if I was going to be fishing in a kayak and I wanted to fish offshore, and maybe the offshore areas I'm trying to fish are spread out around the lake, what I really focus on is trying to find an area where I had 6 or 7 offshore spots that look similar in a 1 to 2 mile section of the lake. And a lot of times you have to be very specific in your map study to find those areas. You won't be able to find areas all over the lake that have good offshore structure close together, and so do a lot of map study, find that 1 or 2 mile section that looks the best on the map, and check out fish there rather than trying to look all over the lake.
All right, so Johnny, this question comes in and he says, hey Chad, I have an Elite TI and have never really understood side scan off of all that well from a kayak. Can he please go over that? Thanks, bro.
Yeah, I can definitely go over that when I get my kayak and get side imaging, but really it's not that much different using side imaging in a kayak versus in a boat. The one thing you have to remember though is that when you're using side imaging, you have to be moving at least 2.5 miles an hour. And so if you're trying to use side imaging, don't do it while you're sitting stationary in your kayak. You have to be moving at 2.5 to 3 miles an hour to get it to work.
Now, the next question comes from Jim Schrag, and Jim said, hey Chad, I would love to know with a Hook 2.5 what I'm supposed to look for on down scan. Also, how to use Navionics to select spots using your maps.
Well guys, I have a lot of great videos already on how to use down imaging and how to read a contour line map on my YouTube page, and Chad can actually link some of those videos. I have complete guides to understanding all different types of structure and cover that you can find with a contour line map, and how to identify bass and structure with your down imaging. So definitely check out those videos, they're gonna help you out a lot.
Next question comes from Ben Stahl. Johnny talks about moving from spot to spot a lot. How can we do that in a kayak? And also, what features would be more crucial on a fish finder for fishing from a kayak? Now, I'll tell you this, I'll handle the part about the moving in a future video, and I've actually covered it in a lot of videos. So Johnny, answer Ben's question about what features would you consider crucial on a fish finder for kayak fishing? As you've been deciding to get into kayak fishing, are there any things that you're separating out from the units that are out there that you say, I have to have this?
Yeah, so really on a kayak, the things I'm really focused on is making sure I have really good down imaging and 2D sonar. Side imaging has a lot of uses in kayak fishing, but if you're just going out for the weekend trying to fish, it takes a lot more effort to graph big swaths of area with side imaging in a kayak. And so if you can focus on just using your down imaging and your 2D sonar, you're going to be a lot better. And I would skip 360 imaging as well as the Panoptics in a kayak. Those things have applications, but again, if you're not fishing professionally or fishing these big kayak tours, stick with a 2D sonar, down imaging, you'll be good to go.
All right, so this question comes from RAL Golf 1953. This is an electronics question. Do you recommend using fish reveal feature on the TI2? And if not, can you demonstrate how to identify fish and the settings you would recommend?
Yeah, so whenever I get a brand new unit, I always turn fish reveal off. That's something that really is just the computer's way of telling you what it thinks a fish is. But we actually have the capability to understand what fish look like better on a fish finder if you understand what you're reading when you're looking at your down imaging and 2D sonar. And so the big thing to keep in mind is when you're looking for bass on your 2D sonar, they're going to look like arches, and when you're looking for bass on your down imaging, they're going to look like small dots. And I do have some videos on my channel that talk about exactly how to identify fish on all the different types of sonar. So definitely check those out, Fish the Moment on YouTube.
All right, so this is kind of a reiteration, but Bama Bigfoot said, what does he consider the most important features for a fish finder? I think you pretty much just covered that, so Bama, thanks for that question, and I'll link up Johnny's videos in the description box that cover a lot of the basic stuff about electronics. Ben Vandrias said, I have a side imaging question. I'm having a hard time getting the setup right. I can't figure it out. If my settings are wrong, or my transducer is mounted wrong, or if it's being recessed into the hull, or the side imaging will not work with the slower speed of the kayak. To be honest with you, the fact that he doesn't know if it's a slower speed to me probably means he's not going fast enough.
Yep.
So Ben, I would say start off by trying to get up over that 2.5 knots. After you do that, if you're still having problems, then you go from there. But it doesn't make sense to troubleshoot until you're at least going fast enough to know. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is you want to make sure that that side imaging transducer is underneath the hull of that kayak. So you want to make sure that you can flip the kayak over and make sure that that transducer is below the bottom of the kayak. That's the two most important things. Going 2.5 miles an hour, it's below the kayak. And other than that, it's just all about the settings in your fish finder. And so make sure you get those settings tuned up. I got a video on how to set up your fish finder on my YouTube channel. Basically, if you want anything about electronics, just go to the Fish Moment YouTube channel. I have a whole playlist. It's Bass Fishing Electronics. I talk about everything. Down imaging, side imaging, 2D sonar. I've made 30-minute videos like crazy about this stuff. So check those videos out. It will help all of you guys be a better bass fisherman.
All right, so Johnny, here's the deal. Some of these questions actually are questions that I think you've even alluded to as we were sitting here getting ready to get out on the water today. So I'm gonna run through some of the actual fishing specific questions. And then if you actually have the same questions as these people, or if you have a little bit more specific thing to add, we'll just go ahead and have the conversation. All right, so let's see here. Big Red Bass said, good stuff. I think we wanna know about how the hook set is different in a kayak than on a boat, like position it and how the kayak moves forward when fishing. I'd like to see how he trolls around the lake and find good waypoints to fish. Like, what is he looking for? So again, you can actually go to his channel. He actually covers all of that. I'm gonna link up not only some individual recommended videos, but the playlist that he talks about as well. One of the things that I can tell you about when it comes to hook sets in the kayak is I'm a big fan of braid. A lot of guys that fish boats get away with fluorocarbon and they get away with mono. Now, there's arguments out there about whether or not fluorocarbon stretches. Tie it to a fence and pull on it. Tie braid to a fence and pull on it. Tell me which one stretches the most. You don't have to have a scientific theory, but there is a little bit of stretch in fluorocarbon. Fishing with mono to me is like fishing with a rubber band. And when you consider that your kayak is moving and your fish is moving towards you, and I'm going to talk about this in an upcoming video where I talk about gear ratios in reels and why they're different in a kayak, or at least you should consider them. But the one thing about setting the hook on a kayak is I never set the hook where I'm in line with the fish, unless I absolutely have to, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to set the hook, the fish comes to me, and because my hole is most efficient to go forward, then I'm converging myself. Now you get up here and you get behind the fish, you can't keep up, the fish jumps, the rod straightens, and you can't keep the fish pinned. So one thing that I always try to do is try to have an offset, you know, whether it's 10 degrees, 15 degrees, 20 degrees, a little bit of an offset. And like when I'm skipping docks, I see a lot of guys skipping docks, and they skip their bait up under the dock, and then they're pointing directly under the dock. When they set the hook, the fish pulls them in, they're trying to put their foot up, they're running their rod tips into the dock. Turn your boat almost perpendicular when you're skipping up under a dock, and back cast under the dock. So when you set the hook, if you're perpendicular to it, that fish can't pull you in. Even if it pulls you sideways, you're still gonna hit those dock pilings and you're not gonna go under the dock. The other thing that I like to do if I got a motor or if I've got a rudder is I like to actually kick my rudder out to the opposite direction. When I set the hook, if that fish pulls me, it actually makes my boat turn away from the dock, and I have the leverage, so it's advantage me, not advantage fish. So one thing to keep in mind is always try to have a little bit of an offset where you're casting or where you're making your presentation, so that when you do set the hook, you're not in line with it and you don't converge on the fish. That's a easy way to solve that problem. That was a question for you. Can you elaborate more on boat position when casting in certain conditions from a kayak? So this kind of goes along the same lines of boat position for hook set, but there is a difference in boat position for casting. One of the things that I like to do is I like to fish into the wind and I like to fish into the sun. A lot of people don't think about this. I've done several videos on it in the past. I'll link up to one of them in the description box, but I'm a big fan of sun angle and knowing your sun angle. If you've ever cast or if you ever watch a bird fly when you're fishing, and as that bird flies you see fish spooking under it, if you throw that lure and you've got the sun at your back and the shadow gets there first, a lot of times it spooks the fish. It alerts them that something's coming, and 9 times out of 10 bait doesn't fly, so they're not looking for bait coming from the sky. They're thinking it's an avian threat or a predator or something like that. So again, I like to cast into the sun as much as I can. I like to think about my depth, right? When you're anchoring, you need 3 to 5 times the length of line as you have the depth of water. So when you think about casting position, if you think about sun angle, it's the same way. The reason that you do that is, here's your kayak, okay? Here's the water line, here's the bottom. You want 3 to 5 times the length to get a good anchor set. Well, when you're actually casting and the sun hits your boat, your shadow is hitting the bottom in similar fashion. I like to be 3 to 5 times as far away as the depth I'm fishing so that my shadow doesn't hit the target and spook the fish. So if you don't have a choice but to have the sun at your back, always stay as far away as you possibly can, or bring your boat around, come in from the bank and make a cast into the sun and present that lure in a much more natural presentation. So boat position is critical. In fact, in my opinion, it's one of the most important things that's the most often overlooked. Okay, so keep that in mind. I always try to bring my lures with the bait and with the current, and I always try to use the sun to camouflage me. I like to use vegetation to camouflage me, and I like to use current and wind to, to camouflage the movements and the noise and the things that I make, because it's bringing, that stuff has to go upstream to get to the fish. All right, vids with wiring, full installation of electronics. One thing I've noticed is most YouTubers all show how, where to mount the stuff, how to drill the holes, and what size drill bit and grommets would be nice. But I've seen very little on how to wire the battery and the fish finder and hooking up the fuses, etc. For someone like me who's new to kayaks and never used any type of electronics, this would be very helpful. I know very little when it comes to wiring and electronics. Just bought a Lowrance Hook 2 triple shot. Seeing a vid on it or something similar would be really nice. Well, you know what? Smitty 502, you're in luck, because we literally just did a video rigging the 502 or the Hook 2 5, and what I did is I did a very rudimentary version of rigging it, because I did it right here at the boat ramp. I will be doing an in-depth series on how to rig. I don't use fuses on lower end units. I don't use fuses on mid-level units, and I only use fuses if my electronics is hooked to a system other things are on. I'm not worried about a 12-volt battery surging. It only diminishes in power. It never really surges. So I don't really worry about the fuse unless I'm hooking into a system. And I'll talk about that in some upcoming videos. I've got a Yak Power control module installation. I've got some stuff where I'm hooking up to a more powerful Dakota lithium. But by and large, we just did that video, so be on the lookout for that here real soon. Real simple, nothing fancy. And then I'm going to do some more advanced stuff, how to use better connections, how to put better longevity. But literally, if you want to know the basics of how to put a Hook 2 5 together, we just did that, and that video will be out real soon. All right, before purchasing a kayak, how much weight would you restrict yourself to if you have to car top? So here's the thing. When you're picking up a kayak, and you guys can go look at my videos on this, how to load a fishing kayak, you never have to pick up the whole weight of the boat. You pick up the end, walk your way up it, get the nose up on the top of the car, slide it up, and then spin it. I always load them perpendicular instead of trying to come over one end. Too many times I've seen people go over the end and then they push the boat and it goes off the front, dangs the hood, slides all through the parking lot and hits the other car. So coming from the side, put a towel on it if you've got a rack, make sure it contacts the rack. But the one thing that's probably more important than the weight that you can lift is be sure to check your manufacturer's recommendations for the rack that you have. And if your kayak exceeds that weight, you don't want to be driving down the road where your kayak can fly off and become a dart and, kill the person behind you. So probably you can handle almost any fishing kayak out there that you can move around getting in and out of the water. You can also get it on top of your car. But I would play around with it. One of the things you can do is go to Facebook and find, kayak fishing groups, ask them to demo their boat, and then ask them if you can load it for them. If you can't load it for them, and who's going to argue with you coming in and loading their kayak for them? So the easiest way to load it is to put the back end on the tailgate of the truck and then slide it in, or vice versa, put the nose in and slide it in and strap it down. But getting it on top of SUVs can be challenging. I have a video for that. I'll link it up in the description box. As far as weight, that's really a personal, each their own thing. First thing to check is the weight capacity of the rack for your particular vehicle. All right, next question here. Tyler Ramsey. How to deal with Oklahoma wind as a new kayak angler, how to secure fishing rods. I flipped my kayak on my second time out on the water and I lost my favorite fishing rods, unfortunately. When it comes to wind, you have to incrementally expose yourself to different amounts of wind, okay? Go out in no wind and get used to the kayak. Go out in 3 or 4 knots and get comfortable with it. I tell everybody, if you don't know if it exceeds your capabilities, it does, okay? I'm gonna say that one more time. If you're not sure if a situation exceeds your capabilities, it does. if you're overconfident, you can get yourself in trouble, but confidence comes from experience. Experience builds confidence, confidence builds experience. So get out there, spend some time on the water. By and large, anything over 10 knots of wind in any situation, you should be using apps like Windy or weather apps to find out where the wind's coming from and do the best you can to stay out of the wind, especially getting out in big open water. Wind at a 45-degree angle to current creates some of the most treacherous conditions because your boat is being turned one way by the current and another way by the wind, and it just makes for a miserable time out on the water. So more than managing boat position, what's funny is Johnny asked me this question earlier, managing the wind. He said, what is the maximum wind you'll go out in? If I've got wind and current together, by and large, I can manage that almost up to dang near anything. I fished in Hurricane Katrina. Not that I'm recommending you do that, but I can fish in really strong winds if the wind and current together. You get more than about 15 degrees separation between the current and the wind, and you start to get that washing machine effect and things get choppy. You're trying to paddle one way, the wind's blowing your boat one way and the current's taking it the other way, and it just really creates some super treacherous situations. So really pay more attention to the delta, or the difference between the wind and the current. If you can get in lee areas, especially in the springtime, if you can get on shaded banks out of the wind in the summertime, you can always catch fish. Offshore fishing is something you really have to be mindful of the weather. Go to Weather Underground and go download the weather apps and set your alerts. Set your alerts to what your parameters for comfort are, and then that way it alerts you if those conditions are coming, because you can get out there and follow the yellow brick road until you're in the middle of nowhere and have no idea what's going on. Next thing you know, you look back and the skies are black and the clouds are puffing up and the wind's picking up and you're stuck. So always be mindful of weather. You are way more at the mercy of the weather in the kayak than you are in a boat, and you can't get home as fast as you can in a boat. So you have to be very mindful when it comes to planning. All right, we're gonna do one more of these, but I promise to go back to this video on a regular basis and funnel some of these questions to Johnny. We'll drop them into my videos, and then vice versa. When you guys ask kayak questions on his channel, I'll do the in-depth kayak stuff. He's gonna do the in-depth electronic stuff. Let's see here. How to access, this question comes from Cuivre. How would you say that?
I have no idea.
Quiver, Swiver, I don't know. Cuivre, and I'm usually pretty good. How to access storage of a kayak while on the water without turtling? For example, the crate behind the seat, in front of the tank well, front hatch, organization of needed gear such as a net on a kayak to prevent massive disorganization. Try to stay away from product specific videos. It makes it look like a commercial and doesn't cast a broad net for everyone who wants to learn what they already have. So here's the thing, I actually did that video for his channel earlier today where I covered most of that. What it really boils down to is not trying to add everything to your kayak at one time, incrementally adding new products or new tools or accessories, and getting comfortable with not only adding that product to your kayak, but adding how it interacts with the other things on your kayak so that you don't have a big disorganized mess. But because of that, I'm gonna end this video with this and say, I'll get very in-depth with answering that specific question in a future series of videos, because it's gonna take more than one video to answer that. Stay tuned for that. Hope you guys like this video. Thank you to Johnny. You guys go hit up his channel. Hit him up in the comment section below and go subscribe, obviously, because I'm gonna be straight up with you. I don't watch any other YouTube channel that I've ever watched more than this guy's YouTube channel. Like, I'm not kidding you. I ran into him at the Classic and we saw each other on the escalator. I'm like, dude, like I fanboyed him.
He chased me down.
I chased him down and I said, I don't know how old you are, but when I first watched your videos, I was like, this kid cannot know what the hell he's talking about. And I say kid because he's only 4 years older than my son. But I'm not kidding you. I watched and I dissected his content with a fine-tooth comb. I actually took a couple things that he said and said, wait a second, went and researched it, and it turns out he was right about a couple things that I had misconceptions about. So honestly, when it comes to electronics, I don't know anybody better. Like, I've not met anybody better. I don't even know folks that work for the companies that represent these products, that know the products and know how to get out of them the maximum benefit as this kid right here, or this guy, this man right here. So anyway, you guys go follow his channel. I'm gonna end the video with that by saying we've got a whole heck of a lot more of this coming. Watch for a big interaction between our channels. He is going to immerse himself in kayak fishing, and I feel like he's going to find a rebirth in fishing, okay? I'm gonna make this analogy and then we're done for the day. Kayak fishing is a lot like bow hunting, right? When you become a bow hunter, you become a better hunter because you have to. And when you become a kayak fisherman, you become a better fisherman because you have to. The only thing I'm scared of is this dude becoming a better fisherman. What the heck? So anyway, tell them where they can find you, man, and take us out of here.
Yeah, check me out on Facebook and Instagram at Fish the Moment, and also on YouTube, Fish the Moment on YouTube. And also check out my website, fishthemoment.com. You can get lake breakdowns, one-on-one lessons with me for electronics, all kinds of stuff. So thanks again, Chad, for having me on in your videos, and look forward to a lot of great kayak information and content coming from both of us in the future. Thanks, guys.
What's up, guys? So listen, I hope you enjoyed this video. Big shout out to Johnny from Fish the Moment for taking the time to answer all of these subscriber questions. Guys, with the weather, Johnny's schedule and my schedule, actually getting out on the water and fishing didn't really work out, which is why I'm gonna have to make a trip back to Arkansas, to Missouri, to his part of the country, and let him help me find some fish, continue to dial in that electronics expertise. Again, one of the most knowledgeable people that I've ever met about electronics. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and head over and subscribe to Johnny's channel as well. And then help us help you, help us by telling us what other content you'd like to see. Hope you're enjoying the content that's been coming out lately, and we're about to ramp it way up. Thank you so much for your support. Love y'all. See you in the next video. One of the things that I like as much as catching fish, well, almost as much as catching fish, is sharing my catch. And I know a lot of you folks like to share your catch as well. So that's why I'd like to introduce the new Tacticam Fisheye. This thing is pretty much ready to go. You just need to add a memory card, but you can add it to all of your Yak Attack accessories, and head over to the folks at Fish USA, pick up the Tacticam Fisheye and the Ready to Fish series, get out on the water and share your catch. Now let's get out there and catch some to share.